Hello, friends. Welcome back to Listen Easy English. I hope you are all having a really nice and happy day. Today, I want to tell you a very special story. This story is about a famous queen who lived a long time ago. She lived over 2,000 years ago. This queen was known not only for her great beauty, but also for her incredible intelligence. She could speak many languages, which was quite unusual for people in her time. Her life was not easy. It was filled with strong feelings like love, but it also had lots of power and dangerous events. Can you picture living in a huge, fancy palace right by the sparkling blue sea? Can you imagine meeting some of the most powerful and important men from all over the world? This queen experienced all of that. Her name was Cleopatra. If you enjoy learning English through stories like this, please subscribe to our channel, Learn Easy English. When you subscribe, it helps us create more stories for you, and it also supports you on your journey to learn English. Cleopatra was born in the year 69 BC in a country called Egypt, specifically in a famous city named Alexandria. Alexandria was a beautiful city located right next to the sea. It had tall buildings that were very impressive. It was home to big libraries full of books, which was something very special back then. Many smart scientists and talented artists from all over the world came to Alexandria to visit. Cleopatra's father was King Ptolemy XII. Interestingly, her family was not originally from Egypt. They came from Greece. They had moved to Egypt many generations before Cleopatra was born. They had been the rulers of Egypt for almost 300 years by the time she came into the world. Cleopatra had many brothers and sisters. In her family, there was a strange tradition of brothers and sisters marrying each other to keep power within the family. This was what the kings and queens of Egypt practiced. However, this practice led to many problems. Brothers fought against each other, and sisters did the same. Everyone in the family wanted to be king or queen, and they all wanted to have the power for themselves. As a young girl, Cleopatra loved to learn about many different subjects. She was very curious and wanted to know everything she could. She learned to read and write in many languages. She spoke Greek, which was her family's native language, but she also worked hard to learn Egyptian. This was significant because most of the kings and queens in her family never bothered to learn the Egyptian language. They thought it was unimportant, but Cleopatra was different. She wanted to communicate directly with her people. She wanted them to like her and trust her. So she studied science, mathematics, philosophy, and music. She read every book she could find in the great library of Alexandria. She asked many questions because she truly wanted to understand how the world worked. People said she was the smartest person in the whole palace, and perhaps even the smartest person in all of Egypt. However, being smart was not enough to solve all the problems Egypt faced. The country was dealing with significant issues. It was not as strong as it used to be. A place called Rome was becoming more powerful every single day. Rome was a city far away in Italy, but its armies were everywhere, taking control of more and more lands. People were afraid of Rome because its army was incredibly strong. Egypt was a wealthy country, but it was also weak. Cleopatra's father understood this, so he tried to be friendly with Rome. He gave them money and expensive gifts in hopes of gaining their favor. But the Romans did not respect him. They even laughed at him and called him names behind his back. When Cleopatra turned 18, her father passed away in 51 BC. Now Cleopatra was the queen, but there was a significant problem. According to tradition, she had to share the throne with her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII, who was only 10 years old. It was customary for a queen and king to rule together, but Cleopatra did not want to share her power. She was smart and strong, and she recognized that her brother was just a child who did not understand how to rule. At first, it seemed that Cleopatra and her brother could rule together, but in reality, all the power lay with Cleopatra. She made all the important decisions, talked to visitors from other countries, and controlled the kingdom's money. The advisors of her brother did not like this at all. They wanted the young boy to be the real king, so they could control him. They did not want a strong, smart queen in charge. These advisors began to work against Cleopatra. They spread rumors, telling people she was dangerous and wanted too much power for herself. They claimed she did not respect the old traditions. Gradually, they turned public opinion against her. After 3 years, they forced Cleopatra to leave Egypt. She had to flee to a place called Syria. At just 21 years old, she had lost her kingdom. But Cleopatra did not give up hope. While in Syria, she did not just sit around and cry. Instead, she started to make a new plan. She knew she needed an army, money, and allies. She spoke to local leaders and made promises to them. She gathered soldiers because she was determined to fight for her throne and return to Egypt. During Cleopatra's time in Syria, something significant happened. A famous Roman general named Julius Caesar came to Egypt. Caesar was one of the most powerful men in the world. He was hunting for his enemy, Pompey. Pompey fled to Egypt, thinking the Egyptians would help him, but he was mistaken. When Pompey arrived, the advisors of the young king killed him, believing this would please Caesar and make him their friend. A few days later, Caesar arrived in Egypt. He was not happy about Pompey's death at all. He thought it was dishonorable how they killed Pompey. Now Caesar was in Alexandria, staying in the royal palace. This is where our story takes a very interesting turn. When Cleopatra heard that Caesar was in Egypt, she knew this was her big opportunity. She had to meet him and talk to him. If Caesar helped her, she could regain her title as queen. However, there was a significant problem. Cleopatra's brother and his advisors controlled Alexandria. If she tried to enter the city, they would likely kill her. She could not just walk through the gates. She needed a clever plan. And Cleopatra was indeed clever. One night, a small boat arrived at the palace. A man stepped out, carrying a large rolled-up carpet. He told the guards he had a special gift for Caesar. The guards allowed him inside. The man entered Caesar's room and placed the carpet on the floor. Then he unrolled it, revealing Cleopatra. She had been hiding inside the carpet. This was how she met Julius Caesar. Caesar was very surprised, but he was also impressed. This woman was not only brave, but also smart. She risked her life just to speak with him. Cleopatra spoke to Caesar in Latin, and she did so beautifully. She was charming and intelligent. She explained all the problems in Egypt and how her brother's advisors were harming the country. She insisted that she should be the rightful queen. Caesar listened carefully. He was 52 years old, and Cleopatra was just 21. They became very close, and some say they even fell in love. Others believe Cleopatra was simply using him to regain her power. Maybe both ideas were true. Caesar decided to help Cleopatra. He declared that she should be the queen again, and that her brother must share power with her, just as tradition dictated. However, the young king's advisors did not accept this arrangement. They started a war and attacked the palace. Caesar and Cleopatra found themselves trapped inside. They had a small number of Roman soldiers, while the Egyptian army surrounded them. The Egyptians attempted to set fire to the ships in the harbor, causing the flames to spread. Some say that during this time, the great library of Alexandria caught fire, and many precious books were lost forever. The war continued for months and was incredibly dangerous. Finally, more Roman soldiers arrived and defeated the young king's army. The young king tried to escape by crossing the Nile River, but his boat sank and he drowned. Now Cleopatra was queen once more, and she felt safe because Caesar had rescued her. Cleopatra and Caesar spent more time together. They traveled along the Nile River and admired the pyramids. They discussed history and science. Cleopatra became pregnant and had a baby boy named Caesarion, which means Little Caesar. Cleopatra claimed that Caesar was the father. Later, she traveled to Rome with her son. She wanted people to see her and show her respect. While in Rome, she stayed in Caesar's villa. Some Romans were upset about this because they did not like foreign queens and were uncomfortable with the amount of power Caesar had. But then something terrible happened. In 44 BC, Julius Caesar was murdered by a group of Roman senators. They stabbed him many times because they believed he wanted to become king. In Rome, the people did not want kings. They wanted a republic. Caesar's death changed everything for Cleopatra. She was in Rome at the time, and she felt very afraid. Quickly, she took her son and returned to Egypt. She had no idea what would happen next. After Caesar's death, Rome fell into chaos, with different men vying for power. One of these men was Mark Antony, a brave and strong general who had been Caesar's ally. Mark Antony and another man named Octavian defeated Caesar's assassins. They then divided the Roman Empire between them, with Octavian taking control of the West and Mark Antony ruling the East. Antony needed money for his armies, and Egypt was rich. Therefore, he asked Cleopatra to meet him. They met in the city of Tarsus. Cleopatra arrived on a beautiful ship adorned with purple sails and silver oars. She wore luxurious clothing and looked like a goddess. Mark Antony was taken aback by her beauty. Just like with Caesar, Cleopatra and Mark Antony became very close. They may have fallen in love, or perhaps they simply needed each other. Antony needed Egypt's wealth, while Cleopatra sought the protection of Rome. They spent a lot of time celebrating and enjoying life. Cleopatra had 3 children with Mark Antony, twins, a boy and a girl, and then another boy. However, this made Octavian extremely angry. Octavian was in Rome and no longer liked Mark Antony. He told people that Antony had forgotten about Rome and cared more for a foreign queen than for his own country. He claimed that Cleopatra was dangerous and wanted to control Rome. Gradually, Octavian turned the Roman people against Mark Antony and Cleopatra. In 31 BC, a great battle took place at sea near a place called Actium. Mark Antony and Cleopatra had many ships, but Octavian had many too. They fought for hours, but Antony and Cleopatra began to lose. In a surprising turn of events, Cleopatra's ships turned around and fled the battle. Antony followed her, leaving his fleet behind. Many of his men felt betrayed and surrendered to Octavian. After this defeat, Mark Antony and Cleopatra returned to Egypt. They knew Octavian would come after them. They tried to prepare and find allies, but no one wanted to help them. Octavian was simply too powerful. A year later, Octavian's army arrived in Egypt. There was a small battle, and Mark Antony lost once again. He heard a rumor that Cleopatra had died, and in his grief, he stabbed himself with his sword. But the rumor was false. Cleopatra was alive. Servants carried the dying Mark Antony to her, and he passed away in her arms. Now, Cleopatra was all alone. Octavian captured her. He was polite, but she was now his prisoner. Cleopatra knew what would happen next. Octavian would take her to Rome and display her in a parade for everyone to see. This was the worst fate for a queen. She could not accept such humiliation. On August 12, 30 BC, Cleopatra died. She was just 39 years old. Many people believe she took her own life. Some say a snake bit her, while others suggest she used poison. No one knows for sure, but she chose her own death. She did not allow Octavian to control how her story ended. With Cleopatra's death, Egypt ceased to exist as an independent nation. Octavian took control of Egypt, and it became part of the Roman Empire. Cleopatra was the last pharaoh of Egypt, and after her, there were no more Egyptian kings or queens. Egypt became Roman, and later it was absorbed into other empires. But it remained under foreign control for a very long time. Cleopatra's story is more than 2,000 years old, yet people still remember her. Why? Because she was different. She was a woman in a world dominated by powerful men. She used her intelligence, spoke many languages, and studied subjects like science and philosophy. She did not rely solely on her beauty. She also used her mind. She made mistakes, too. Some believe she prioritized power over her people. Maybe that is true. However, she lived in a very dangerous time and did her best to protect Egypt and keep her country free. She almost succeeded. Cleopatra taught us something very important. She showed that intelligence is a form of power. She demonstrated that learning languages and studying can change your life. She proved that bravery is essential, even when faced with challenges. Cleopatra was not perfect. Nobody is perfect. But she never gave up. She fought until the very end. Today, when we learn English, we are doing something similar to what Cleopatra did. We are learning a new language that opens doors to new opportunities. Each word we learn represents a small victory. Every story we listen to helps us understand the world better. Just like Cleopatra learned many languages to communicate with different people, we are learning English to connect with the world around us. Thank you for listening to this story today. I hope you enjoyed this journey through history and that it helped you with your English learning. If you liked this story, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to hear more stories like this one, please subscribe to our channel. Your support allows us to create more content for your English learning journey. If you have any ideas for other historical stories you want to hear, please leave a comment below. I would love to know what stories interest you the most. Until next time, my friends, keep learning, keep listening, and keep enjoying this beautiful journey of life.